taking notes from nobody.
Your superstars have off games.
Follow us on social media at Celtics Talk Weekly. Sorry about that. Wi-Fi difficulties. Welcome everybody back in to Celtics Postgame. I am your host. And with my co-host here, Seamus Zarlingo, aka Game 5 at home to the Milwaukee Bucks and company as they blow a 14-point lead fourth quarter. The Bucks came out with a 110-107 victory game. Milwaukee, the Bucks on court. Celtics will be down 3-2. Jason Tatum led all Celtics scorers with 34. He gave us 6 rebounds, 4 assists along the way. Giannis Antetokounmpo did his thing for Milwaukee. He gave us another 40-piece on 16-27 shooting. And Drew Holiday was shortly behind him with 24. The Bucks found a way to win that game, Seamus, in that fourth quarter. The Celtics, who have been so good and so efficient in this past 2 fourth quarters, couldn't get enough. They didn't necessarily shoot poorly. They turned the ball over a couple times. And, what went wrong for the Celtics tonight here at home?
Well, the Celtics had this game in their hands for the entire night. Every single point of this game, the Celtics had an opportunity to extend their lead. And throughout the night, it just never happened to the extent in which we thought it would happen at. Because there were moments in this game where we could have easily went up at half 13 points or went up at a certain point 15 points and swung the game and the momentum more towards us, and that us being the Celtics, of course. But Milwaukee, they always made that extra play to be within striking distance. We did create some space between them early in the fourth quarter, going up 14 points. But then after that point, there are a couple people on Twitter mentioned the Celtics were playing not to lose rather than to win. And that's exactly what happened. They were walking the ball up every single time. They weren't being as aggressive. More of the possessions were resulting in isolation, contested shots rather than the ball whipping around and them finding good shots, the Celtics finding good shots. Then on the other end of the floor, they just could never seem to get a stop when they needed it. At every single moment in which you thought the Celtics, okay, they grabbed momentum here, they've extended the lead, they have everything going on their side. The Milwaukee Bucks would hit a big 3. They would hit a big shot at the rim, have a Giannis basket at the rim in 4 seconds, and then all of a sudden, all that momentum the Celtics built up was washed away in that little span of time. That just kept happening throughout this game tonight, and especially in the fourth quarter. That fourth quarter, it's one of those moments in games where you think a result is happening. In your mind, it's etched into your mind. This result is happening. The Celtics are winning this game. And then all of a sudden you just notice, oh, man, we're only up by 8. Oh, man, we're only up by 6. We're only up by 4. We're only up by 5. And then, all of a sudden, Milwaukee has tied the game. Oh, all of a sudden, Milwaukee has the lead and they're winning the game. And that's exactly what happened tonight in Game 5. And the execution down the stretch was poor, very uncharacteristic from the Celtics. I just don't understand why the ball wasn't in Tatum's hands more often, really, or Brown's hands for that matter. We had a lot in Marcus Smart, Al Horford. It's like you want the guys, the stars, to be taking the shots in those moments. And I just there's so much to talk about when it comes to this game, but down the stretch, it was just very not so much embarrassing because we've had very embarrassing moments against lesser teams this season, and ultimately Milwaukee is a championship level team. But down the stretch, I mean, this was an all-time blown game by the Celtics in Game 5. You had a chance. This team had a chance to take a 3-2 series lead back to Milwaukee, closeout game on the Bucks home floor, and they had a chance to really grab this series by the balls after being down 2-1 just 4 days ago, and yet now they're down 3-2 after a terrible loss and have to win the next 2 games to save the season. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. It's going to be very tough to do, but from this team this entire year, it's been resiliency, and this is the moment right now in which they have to respond, because tonight's game, just a horrible, no good, blown loss for the Celtics.
It's a great way to put it. I don't think there is another really way, but I mean, we played a fantastic first 3.5 quarters. I don't even think we finished the game poorly. It was these little slip ups that we made. Whether it was I mean, personally speaking, I said it during the game. I said, Giannis was at the line. You got to put a rebounder in, and I think that's Udoka not being there before. That's that rookie head coach really showing. It's that inexperience. You figure you have a timeout, 2 free throw shots from a no one in that gym thought Giannis was going to make both of those free throws. You have a timeout. You put Tice and Grant Williams with Horford in there, a couple big bodies. You grab that rebound. You call a timeout. You get your subs in. And next thing you know, you're drawing up a play to, get it into the foul shooter's hands. And, that's what at least on. And the Celtics let that slip, and obviously, Bobby Portis lays it in. Then we come out, Smart drives baseline with right around 10 seconds left to try to draw a foul, get to the free throw line. That was unsuccessful. Then Connaughton makes both. Celtics come down. Smart. You guys watch it. I don't have to replay it into your head, but it was just this was Milwaukee showing us that they are the more experienced team. They've been there. They've executed in the finals. They have a ring. And it showed tonight on the road. This was not an easy task for Giannis and the Bucks. This was the Celtics game to lose. Game 5 at home, coming off a win on the road, playing like they did in the fourth quarter. And you make a great point, Seamus. The season isn't technically over, right? We just got to win 2 in a row. Obviously, we got to win 2 in a row before Milwaukee can win 1, and we got to go back to their place and do it. And there's speculation of a potential Chris Middleton return. So it doesn't look great, but, all season long, this Celtics team their backs have been against the wall. They folded, they slipped. So it's not over necessarily. I mean, putting this team up on the road against Giannis in a game 6 where it's a win or go home. It's going to be a tough ask. I think we can answer the call, but I got to talk about the poor execution tonight. I don't know what this Celtics locker room is going to look like. I don't know what it's going to sound like. But when you are winning a basketball game from the start of the second quarter on, and you're up by 13 at one, I mean, it was a blowout, but it would go up by 13. Then Milwaukee put it down to 2, and then we went back up to another big lead. It never really felt like we were blowing them out, but it also didn't feel like it was close. It was a weird feel, and I remember thinking, like, Milwaukee's going to come back, right? Like, they're going to come answering. It's what they do. In the Celtics, just lack of experience and inabilities to, when was the last time they've been in that type of situation, Seamus? What? 2000 and it's been since 2018. It's been that long. They haven't been in that high pressure situation. You had the bubble, we made a run, but there was that. It's not the same thing when you're in the bubble. Then we did around that atmosphere. Then you had the COVID year, and then this one in 2019. We got our butts handed to us. So it's been 4 years since we've been in a situation like tonight. In the Celtics' inexperience and inability to execute down the stretch when the pressure is at its highest showed. And I don't blame Tatum. I don't blame Brown. I blame Udoka. And it's not. He's been great for us all season or second half of the season, but the inexperience just really showed tonight. And when the Bucks the execution That's really what it was, Seamus. The Bucks executed, and Udoka kind of was rattled and didn't know what to do.
I don't necessarily think that it was all inexperience. And I thought, well, you mentioned it at the end. I thought it was more of Milwaukee's execution and Boston being too timid down the stretch. We've seen them in these moments before, especially, you go back to that Nets series, almost every single game was close down the stretch. Wasn't as quite the level of competition as we're facing against the Bucks right now, but we certainly had moments where we came through there. Tonight, down the stretch, I don't know why the team was so timid in some of their shot selection. I don't know why they went more to their stagnation sets where the ball wasn't moving as often. I don't know why they weren't pushing the pace. And also, I don't know how they kept letting Milwaukee convert on opportunities immediately after grabbing the momentum. There were so many moments in this game where the Celtics grabbed the momentum with a big three. You think of the Al Horford putback dunk as well. And then the Milwaukee Bucks, they would go in on the other end of the floor and they would score in less than 10 seconds. And it was those possessions to me that the Celtics could have grabbed the game by the balls and taken it, especially late in that fourth quarter. I mean, you think they were up 14 at one point in the fourth quarter. They had a 10-point lead for most of that fourth quarter, and then they just squander it down the stretch. And it's all because they let Milwaukee hang around at the end. And Milwaukee, we all know they're not a team that's going to roll over. We're not facing the Sacramento Kings. We're facing the Milwaukee Bucks, who are trying to win a championship and also have, one of the best players in the NBA or in the world on their roster in Giannis Antetokounmpo, and they've been in these situations before. On the road. You think last year in Game 7 against Brooklyn, what they had to do there in overtime. So the Celtics, they just, down the stretch, their inability to get a stop and then also consistently convert and run their offense the way they have been running their offense for this entire game. This is what makes this game so frustrating. Was there are so many positives you can take out of this game, but ultimately none of those matter right now. They don't. You lost tonight. You lost Game 5. The Celtics lost Game 5, and they're now facing a 3-2 series deficit, and you really cannot take a moral victory out of this game. You can't go, oh, well, we did this well, we did this well. No, it does not matter. We got to win Game 6 and do those same things well again on the road now. And also, I will say, I'm not going to lose faith in this team just yet. It's going to be hard to win the next 2 games against the Milwaukee Bucks, but honestly, looking at this game tonight, even if we won this game, we would have to go on the road and win a closeout game, Game 6 in Milwaukee against the Bucks. And in my mind, I was thinking this series was probably going 7. Now you have to do that same thing, but to keep your season alive if you're the Celtics. And ultimately, they should have the mentality. I'm sure they've had this mentality the entire playoffs, but win the next game. Because if they win the next game, Game 7 is winner take all, and Game 7s are a complete and utter toss-up. And right now, the Celtics, they have it on their home floor. It's not going to be easy winning Game 6, but we've seen this team, Smart, Tatum, Horford, Brown, they've been together for, half a decade now. Obviously, Horford had that little stint where he wasn't on the team, but they've been together for half a decade. I don't see this locker room unraveling right now as we've seen in the past. I think this is a different group of players. They're accomplished not only in this year, but in years past in these type of moments. And I think they will respond in Game 6, but it is not going to be easy whatsoever. I think we're in for another pretty good game in Milwaukee in Game 6.
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, wasn't Milwaukee down 3-2 to Brooklyn last year? And
I believe
or was it the
so.
other way around? Was Milwaukee up 3-2 and Durant had that killer Game 6? I don't know. But every championship team has been put in a situation like this, whether it's down 3-2, down 0-2, whatever it may be. This one stings because it's on your home court. If this was a game in Milwaukee, obviously it'd still sting, but you'd figure, this one really stings because of how you couldn't afford to lose this game just due to the situation the Celtics are now sitting in. Seamus, you said it your best. It's a tough ask, right? We can do it. I mean, I'm not giving up hope. I'm not saying the season's completely over. The season's on the line. It's win or go home. whether it's the next, if we play one or two more games, it's win or go home in both games. But it's just the way they lost, how they were winning almost the entire game, and how Brown and Tatum were clicking. Tatum couldn't really find a rhythm from beyond the arc, but the offense was going, and White looked so stellar in the second quarter, and Tice came in and knocked down some big shots, and Smart was hitting shots, and you felt, oh, we're going to cruise ourselves right around a 7-point lead. And then the Bucks put it to, I mean, you've already said it, right? They just kind of kept. And you're totally right. It's championship experience over there by Milwaukee. They've been there. And it's going to take the best game of the season. I think the Celtics really have to find a way to shift the momentum. Milwaukee right now, they're feeling amazing. They're going back home. With 5 minutes left, they were thinking, shit, we might be down 3-2. We got to win the game at home. And next thing you know, 5 minutes, 10 minutes later, they're thinking we get to go close this thing out in front of our fans. So, it's got to be a Jason Tatum legacy game. That's what it's got to be. It's got to be Jason Tatum has to step up. If you go back and look at all the greats, they've had a moment in their career where series on the line, down, well, other than Jordan was never really trailing in the series, but down 3-2, down, right, they've been down, and they've come and they've answered, they've willed their team to a win. So I really got to see that from Jason Tatum to this Friday night. But I mean, I cannot believe it. I can't believe it. It was just the worst possible way, in my opinion, to lose a game. And as soon as that shot got up from the free throw, Giannis missed it, and I just heart dropped. Portis, obviously, credit to the Milwaukee Bucks for their execution. We've given them all the credit in the world. Budenholzer did his thing tonight, and the Celtics, they got to find a way. They had to find a way, at least tonight, to execute the fourth quarters like they had in games 3 and 4. So well, too. They had phenomenal fourth quarters, and it wasn't even the whole fourth quarter, Seamus, either. It was kind of just like the last 3 minutes where they weren't up enough to kind of play the just don't lose game, like you said. They were only up by 12, which is if you hit, that's 4 possessions to tie. And then 3 minutes, there's 3 minutes left, and next thing you know, 6 with 3 minutes left against the defending champs. You're letting them hang around. And then they were kind of just playing this don't lose game. And then next thing you know, it kind of gave me flashback to January vibes or December vibes. I'm not going to lie. Just like the offensive, it kind of looked deer in headlights. They had no idea what to do. But it's on to game 6. This team cannot dwell on this loss. They have to take it. Take it personal. Like that whole, they got to take it personal. They got to go into game 6. They got to come out with their best. They got to stop. It's not going to be easy. You got to come out hot. You got to come out physical. You got to come out with your eyes on the prize. And if you can get this series back to Boston, and you think you got a puncher's chance, but you really got to find a way to go at in Milwaukee. And it's just, I don't know. I'm not losing hope, but it's a big ask. I've said it over and over again.
Yeah, you mentioned January, and really for me, the feeling of January spiked again tonight because I don't think we've had this feeling since January where this team has just collapsed epically in the fourth quarter. I mean, the last game that you really think that happened in was against the Blazers back at the end of January. And now that's what partially gives me faith in this team to respond now. It's going to be very, very tough to win Game 6 in Milwaukee against Giannis and the Bucks, a championship-level team in the Milwaukee Bucks on their home floor. However, you've seen how many times this Celtics team has had this type of moment this season. If there's any team in the NBA that knows how to respond from this type of game, it is the Celtics. But like I said, it's going to be tough moving forward for them. And in Milwaukee at home and Giannis at home, I mean, they're going to be on another level themselves, and that crowd is going to be crazy throughout that one. But going into some numbers here tonight, though, the Celtics, they had so many opportunities to win this game. They were up for most of the game outside of, of course, the first quarter and the end of the fourth quarter. But you just look at some numbers. The Celtics in the first half, okay, so they have 14 assists in the first half. They have 11 in the second half. a little bit less. But the rebounding battle right now, in this game, 17 offensive rebounds for the Milwaukee Bucks in this game. That is an insane amount of offensive rebounds for a team. And I'm sure their second chance points, if I can pull those up here in a second, are insane as well. But you look at the rebounding numbers from tonight, too many offensive rebounds for the Milwaukee Bucks. The assist numbers, I kind of already mentioned the Bucks picked up that category in the second half, and turnovers as well. Milwaukee had 9 turnovers in the first half, only 4 in the second half. So they cleaned up their turnover problem. The Celtics weren't forcing as many turnovers. And the Celtics themselves, I believe they had 3 turnovers at half. They had second. So you just you can go through the numbers and you can kind of paint a picture. The Celtics near the end of the game and in the second half started to really take their foot off the gas a little bit in some of these categories. And ultimately, give a ton of credit to the Milwaukee Bucks because, first of all, Jrue Holiday, the end of the game for Jrue Holiday, was absolutely legendary. Legendary. If they win the championship this year, they are going to look at Game 5 and what Jrue Holiday did tonight and look at that as a huge turning point, a huge moment in their run. Jrue Holiday, think of what he did down the stretch. Hits the huge 3 to tie the game. Then he blocks Marcus Smart at the rim when the Celtics themselves are trying to go up in the game and win the game in the last seconds. And then the Celtics have a chance to tie the game with 5 seconds or with 6 seconds rather. They have to go full court. And what does Jrue Holiday do? He steals the ball and ices the game. Unfortunately, came against our team, and it sucks to see that, and it sucks to see that moment go against your team. But if you're just looking at it objectively as a basketball fan, that was just a great moment for Jrue and, of course, Bucks fans as well. And that moment will go down in history if, of course, they continue to make their run. But that's just championship-level basketball out of Jrue Holiday. And, of course, the Bucks down the stretch. We all know Bobby Portis. I detailed it a little bit a couple of days ago how much Milwaukee fans love him. And you see why. Down the stretch, he grabbed that huge offensive rebound, and ultimately that was the game-winning basket for the Bucks. They didn't really need the 2 free throws afterwards, but that was the game-winning basket for them. He grabs that offensive rebound, puts it in. Pat Connaughton is a hustler for them. Super big shot maker. I don't know if he might, but I think he missed a big shot rather tonight.
He made a couple big ones to keep him in this game. Pat.
Yeah, throughout the game. And you just look at that whole team. They have championship pedigree. They have the players who can execute and get it done. They have a good coach on the bench there in Mike Budenholzer. And we've seen how good of a team they can be. And last year, of course, they won the championship against the Phoenix Suns, who now the Phoenix Suns, you look at the Phoenix Suns 64-win basketball team, they're the championship favorite. Well, the Bucks beat that same team last year in the playoffs, in the finals, in the biggest moment. So you just not give enough credit to the Milwaukee Bucks for what they did tonight. But the Celtics, you just look at their side and they had this game. They just simply had this game against this type of team. And this is why you just look at it and there's no inches given up in the playoffs, because every single team you're facing is going to be as high of a level as you in execution, in talent, in everything. And if you take your foot off the gas for 1 second like the Celtics did late in that fourth quarter, you see what can happen against a championship-level team like the Milwaukee Bucks. And it's just unfortunate that we saw this moment come against the Boston Celtics. And ultimately, Celtics, though, we mentioned it earlier, Milwaukee, they were down 3-2 in that net series. They came back, won Game 6, except they were at home in Game 6, and then won Game 7 on the road. The Celtics are going to have to win Game 6 on the road as if it's their Game 7. And, of course, Game 7 back at home, they have to win that one as well against Giannis and the Bucks. And like we see tonight, Giannis and the Bucks, they can clearly win on the road. But this is the Celtics moment as well. This is the type of moment where adversity is hitting very, very hard for this team right now. They just lost. They really just blew a playoff game, one of the most important playoff games, Game 5. You see the percentage, 82% of teams who win Game 5 go on to win the series. They blow that game. Now they got to win the next 2, and this is really the moment for the Boston Celtics. But man, these are two high-level teams, two championship-level teams going at it, and I really feel whoever wins this series, they're going to the NBA Finals. So these next two games, if they do happening, of course, they are going to be big in history, huge in history. And tonight was terrible, but moving on, I have confidence. I have confidence in this team against the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely not over. That's for sure. We've seen teams win. I mean, it happened to us, LeBron, back in 2018, down 3-2. The difference is here is it's that usually game teams down 3-2 are usually tend to head back home for a game six. Celtics have been a good road team. So for the past 40 games, 50 games. So that's the difference. It's actually easier for the Celtics if they can win game six to go ahead back home and finish off in game seven. So most teams, like you said, Milwaukee last year was going home for game six, won game six at home. And then game seven, they went into Barclays and win. So Milwaukee's done this before, except that, they went home. So that's the only difference here is that the Celtics have to go win a game six on the road rather at home. But there is a positive. I mean, the positive, I could say it. They get their game seven back at home. So if they do find a way to squeak out a game six win, which is possible, I do think it's possible. It's going to take a Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum masterclass game. That's for sure. I mean, I think you're gonna get the best version of the Milwaukee Bucks. At least I'd assume so that we've seen. And you're coming home for a game seven, so it's by no means over. It's definitely favoring the Bucks. That's for damn sure. The Bucks, they credit to them. They did what they had to do in order uh, to walk out of here with a series clinching win potentially at home. They've won twice now at TD, and you'd figure if you're the Celtics, this could have been the series clincher tonight if you take care of business at home. Obviously, that's a lot to ask for, but you got to defend home court. That was my key to the series was if you don't lose at home, you don't lose this series. It's a lot to ask a team in the playoffs to go win twice on the road against the defending champs too. That's a lot. But hey, if the Celtics are a championship team, like we thought they were, they'll get out of this series. If this team is as serious as they have been, and if they are as true and real about this as we think they are, they'll respond. It's not they're not down 3-1, they're not down 0-3. They got to win two. And one of them's at home. They just got to win one road game and one game at home. It's happened many times before. However, I did think I saw a stat that said teams that go up 3-2, 82% of the time in history have gone on to advance. So, it's not on our side, but I'm not losing hope. It was a terrible, terrible way to win game five. Some terrible execution from both the players and the coaching staff, in my opinion. I do think a little bit of our inexperience did show. Seamus, you also did mention how Milwaukee's experience kind of was more of a factor. I can agree with that as well, but the Celtics just let Game 5 slip from their fingers. Game 6 is Friday, 7:30 in Milwaukee. You can find that, I believe, on TNT, I believe. I'm going to check the game schedule real quick. If I'm not mistaken, it is TNT. It is ESPN, my fault. So you can find that on ESPN. We'll have you covered here. We'll have the whole crew back. Obviously, Ian and Justin.
I wonder how they're feeling right now.
Oh, right. Oh, I can only imagine. I wouldn't be able to compose myself if I was there tonight.
I mean, they went from being at one of the best games of their lifetime to being at one of the worst.
Yeah,
that's just how it goes.
I mean,
sports.
I don't want to sound cliche, by any means, but I feel like every championship team, or majority of them, I think the one exception I can think of is the 2018 and 17 Warriors, have had a series where their backs are against the wall. They're down in the series. It's looking like, oh shit, they're going home, and they've responded. Now, that's what the championship team is. Whether it's Boston down 3-2 or whether it's Memphis down 3-1 or whether it's but a lot of the time you see the championship level teams down 3-2. We saw it with Milwaukee last year, the 2020 season. The Lakers didn't have a series like that. They kind of went through the
They didn't face anyone.
yeah, they went through the West pretty handily. 2019
Blazers, Rockets, Nuggets, and the Heat in the finals.
just
They didn't face
the
anyone. Really
Raptors down 0-2 to the Bucks, go on to win 4 straight. Like I said, 17, 18 kind of asterisks. The Cavs back in 2016.
The Warriors in 2018, and also the Cavs. The Celtics and the Rockets had 3-2 series leads in the conference finals.
And the Cavs had to win. Obviously, LeBron James. They had to win a Game 7 on the road. So the task at hand isn't impossible. It's actually very, very doable if they can find a way to win Game 6. Because the Bucks are thinking they're thinking to themselves, we don't want to go back to Boston for a Game 7. Although I could be wrong, they're 2-1 in Boston, but they're thinking, let's close this out at our home court. Let's not give them any chance. If Boston can find a way to close that out, to find a way to get back to Boston, I think we can close it out and in the Game 7, like you said, Seamus. That's a toss up. That's just punches are going to be thrown. You're going to see each team's best game, but I mean, other than that, I don't think there's that much more to talk about. There was a lot of good stuff that got overshadowed by that last 5 minutes. Brown's third quarter just barrage. Was it the third quarter barrage of probably 10 straight points with those 2 step back threes and then the step back 2 on Grayson Allen, and it was just, or Wesley Matthews, one of the two. It was mid range. It was just beautiful, and then Smart hit some big shots, and Tatum got going early, threw down some nice into Horford's. I mean, it was really a great game until that second half of the fourth quarter, and it really does sound like we're in a post game back in January 3rd or December 15th, where it's like, oh well, the Celtics first half, it was the best game we've seen all season, and then it got overshadowed by a fourth quarter collapse. It was the Celtics' best game, in my opinion, of all the playoffs. Was this Game 5 through the first 3 quarters. Brown was going, Tatum was going, Smart was going, the defense was there, Giannis was turning the ball over, the Bucks looked rattled, and then the Celtics just let it slide through their fingers. And we are off. And do you know what the worst part about this is, Seamus? I have a final Friday during the time of the Celtics game.
Well, I don't know what to tell you, man. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know. I've been through some sticky situations in school for certain events, whether it's like that one time the Celtics, they played a London game and they played I believe it was like 2 o'clock or something. And it was like 3 p.m. East Coast, but it was 2 p.m. my time when I was still in school. I remember sneaking that in there. There's been a couple of soccer games, of course, over time, but yeah, you're going to have to figure that one out.
Yeah, I'm going to be sitting there just fiddling my thumbs, praying that the Celtics can find a way to win that game. But like I said, there's not really too much. It's a shame. There's not a lot. Some quick. If I were to go down the list of the players right here in kind of who had good games, who had bad games, I think the first one to come to mind is Smart. It kind of looked like Smart wanted the moment a little too much. I got that feeling that Smart was trying to make every play. Brown, it looked like Brown had the rebound, and Smart came flying in and tried to grab it. And then the inbounds play, Smart attacks the paint. Drew Holiday comes up from behind. And then even the final play, Smart was bringing up the court. Tatum was wide open. If he kept his eyes up, he threw an outlet pass. This Tatum gets an open prayer at overtime. So it's just like Smart was trying to do too much. And that, I think it was like an old-fashioned Marcus Smart. It was like a Marcus Smart it was really an uncharacteristic fourth quarter collapse from the Celtics that we haven't seen in months. And if the season has told us anything, it's that they will respond in Game 6 back in Milwaukee. I think, I'm going to go out here and say that Celtics, I think I can say Boston will win Game 6 on the road. But I'm going to come out here and I'm going to say it with stones. I'm going to say it. I think Boston will go and win Game 6. It would be so uncharacteristic for the Celtics to lose Game 6, in my opinion, based off the last 4 months. They've been knocked down, they've been tossed around, they've been the 11 seed, they've been the 1 seed. They've responded essentially every moment of the season. I think they respond again in Game 6, Seamus. As we close out the show here, before we do wrap up, however, your final thoughts, reactions, opinions, comments, what you got for me before we end the show here tonight?
I think we will win Game 6. And also, we should have the refs on our side in Game 6. Everybody's been talking about the officiating throughout this series. Well, in Game 6, it's been proven time and time again. The team who is down in Game 6, 3-2, often
NBA.
receives the whistle. So the
NBA
Celtics should have the whistle.
They won
Yeah.
Game 7s.
Yeah, and the Celtics should have the whistle on the road in Game 6. That will be an advantage of them. But this Game 6, I wouldn't be surprised if they lost because of how good Milwaukee is and how good Giannis is. Like, I would not be surprised if Giannis goes out here and drops a 50-piece on us in Game 6. We've seen it almost twice this series, or 3 times this series. He's gone for 40-plus points. But ultimately, the Celtics executing and fighting to the last moments of that game. That's all they can do up to this point. They can execute their stuff and fight to the last moment. That's the only thing they can do in Game 6. There's no moral victory to take away from Game 5. Yes, they did things well, and there's going to be things that carry over from Game 5 into Game 6 it's going to be an adjustment. However, Game 6, you just have to execute and fight down the stretch. And I expect the Celtics to win that game, but if they don't, I expect them to lose in heartbreaking fashion because I don't think this team is going down. They're not going to go down like the 2019 Celtics went down where they go to Game 5, Milwaukee down 3-1, and they lose 116-91. That's not happening. If the Celtics lose Game 6, it's going to be by 3 points. But I expect them to win Game 6 because they have the whistle on their side. And, of course, what you said, all they've done this entire season is respond to adversity with resiliency. We've seen it time in and time out this entire season with this ball club that when the moment becomes big, when the moment in which they need to respond comes around, they respond in a big way. And we've seen it from every single player on this team individually and from this team as a whole. Right now, a period in which we have to win the next game. Just think about the next game. Game 6, you win that game. Game 7 is a total and utter toss-up at home between 2 championship-level teams in the Celtics and the Bucks. But the Celtics right now, they have to be thinking about just execute, fight, and win Game 6 on the road in front of the Bucks home crowd in Milwaukee.
Yeah. I mean, season's on the line Friday night, boys. It's on the line. This could either be the start of what is a championship run, or it's the end of the line for the Boston Celtics, which would really suck because this season has been such a turnaround. And you can look at it, you can have perspectives, Seamus, I think. One of them is this season we weren't really supposed to be in this position. Turn around in the second half, but I don't want to hear any of that because the expectation in Boston is always to win is championships, and anything other than that, we don't celebrate. I mean, the players say it. So yeah, I mean, like we said, it's on a Game 6. That's what we have to be thinking. It's what the players have to be thinking. Put your head down. I hope none of these players can go to bed tonight from how pissed off they are. I hope they wake up tomorrow, Thursday morning, hop on a plane to Milwaukee, get into the gym, start game planning, and just get ready because, like we said, championship teams have been in these situations time and time again. If this team is serious, they got to realize that many people have been here before and only the elite get past. And if this Celtics team's elite, they'll get past. And it's going to be a dogfight. Like we said, Friday at 7:30, Bucks versus Celtics tip-off on ESPN. You can go watch it there. We will have you covered back here for Celtics Postgame Live over on the Boston Sports Media Live YouTube channel, which is right here. Go follow us on all of our social medias, which is in the description down below. We'll have Justin and Ian back on the call with us for Celtics Postgame Live, guys. Celtics fall 110-107 at home in Game 5 as the Bucks take a 3-2 series lead, and we will see you Friday night back here